doing one of those.
You seen Bohemian Rhapsody?
Catch me in a couple hours.
You got the chorus.
I don't think a single one of them could hit a falsetto if their life depended on it. It turns out that I'm really crappy at doing the giveaway thing, so I'm not going to do a giveaway thing. Because everyone else I watch gets good jokes and everything, and gets people involved. And Heidi comes up to me yesterday and said, "Your giveaway questions suck." I was like, all right.
That's love.
That was love, true love. I love you, baby. Shut up. Okay. All right, we're just going to start. All right, so Hacker Arcade, wrong boss. The labs this year, as we indicated, were this kind of attempt to do something that was hands-on, allowing people to learn, but not necessarily, super expensive training kind of things. This is meant to be a, let's see how much gear we can get together in a room and what we can make it play nice with each other. A few years ago, some of the East Coast Shmoo had something we called a VPN-a-thon, where we took a bunch of VPN gear from about 18 different vendors, put it in a room, started at 8 a.m., and tried to build a fully meshed network by the time we all felt like we were bored and wanted to go home. By noon, we had one tunnel up, and it was like a homogeneous tunnel between two FreeBSD boxes, and so, woohoo, FreeBSD. But by the end of the day, we had about half the tunnels up. But it was a learning experience, and a lot of people learned a lot about VPNs and that kind of thing. So this was kind of an extension of that as well, where we tried to get a lot of gear together, and these guys really worked pretty hard, and so did everybody that was in the lab. So I wanted to thank everybody who participated. And from left to right here, we've got Terry, Ken, Luis, that guy, Mike, and Eno. Okay. And they'll all do better introductions for themselves the first time they grab the microphone and say anything of value. Okay. Excellent. Here you go, guys.
So my name's Ken Caruso. Bruce came up with this great idea of doing ShmooCon labs, and somehow I got volunteered for it. So I kind of organized and ran the whole thing, and the purpose of this is to kind of have a discussion and explain what we did, what went well, what didn't go well, and get some of the participants in the audience who were involved in it to also kind of give their feedback, and just kind of explain what happened. Just to do a quick intro, I'm just going to buzz through a couple of slides here real quick to explain a few things. So basically, the mission of ShmooCon Labs was to get 30 conference attendees, 5 vendors, and the ShmooCon NOC staff, which has been doing this for the conference for the past 2 years, and I put them all together in a room for somewhere between 24 and 48 hours and build a reliable conference network. To actually choose the attendees, when people were registering for the conference, we made this available to them, and we basically said straight up that it was not a first-come, first-served basis, that we wanted people to essentially apply and tell us a little bit about themselves, explain why they wanted to do it. And the reason for that was because we didn't want to have one of the two extremes where we might get 30 people that are all CCIEs and know their shit inside and out, because then nothing would get done. And so we didn't want to have 30 people, we didn't want to have like 30 people that were all help desk staff that didn't necessarily have a wide range of skill sets needed to do what we were doing. So we wanted to make sure that it was an even balance of people that had some really good skills, people that wanted to learn and were really encouraged to do stuff. And we pretty much ended up with that. We had a pretty good mixture of some old hacks and some new blood. Some people, we had people doing stuff that they had never done before, like creating reverse DNS zone files, configuring firewall rules, those types of things. And so we originally decided that we were going to have a 30-person cap. We had 29 applications, and after we went through, we basically accepted everybody. Nobody got turned down. Out of those 29 people, we had 25 actual registrations, and about 20 people, I believe, showed up Thursday morning. We had some people who, their companies registered them for basically all of ShmooCon, and they're like, oh yeah, this is a great idea, you should go to this, and then they showed up at 4 or 5 o'clock on Thursday, and they're like, hey, this is pretty cool, So basically we ended up with 20 people, and not including the vendors. So this is just a little slide I wanted to insert in here. So we asked everybody, why do you want to participate? And I thought this was pretty much the best answer to that question. I'm not going to disclose who it was. I don't think that's really fair. Yours is pretty good. Well, you know, why would you spend $50 at a strip bar when you could spend $50 stripping cable? That was So in terms of the vendor and hardware, Aruba brought wireless access points and controllers. Network Chemistry brought a wireless IDS. Just to give a quick, like, we'll go into a little bit more detail, but like with the Aruba wireless stuff, it's not a standard access point. The access points are actually like really dumb devices, and they tunnel all the traffic up to a controller, and so it's almost kind of like a switch for wireless APs. That's kind of an easy way to explain it. Network Chemistry provided wireless IDS systems, which basically monitor and log any security events that they detect on the wireless network. Veneer provided network access control and IPS system. Nitro. That is. Why is there a... Hold on here. That's bad. So, and then Qualys provided us with a vulnerability assessment scanner. And then a Veritech provided me with a crappy laptop. And who else? Are we missing anybody here? We must be missing someone. Vendors. You guys? Nitro. Oh, Nitro. Well, Nitro brought an IPS system. We also had a packet logic box from Procera, which is basically a box that can do all sorts of like flow analysis and traffic management. And then we had a Qualys Guard vulnerability scanner. ShmooCon provided about 4 or 5 Dell PowerEdge servers for basic infrastructure boxes. And then, let me make sure I got, can you see, can you like see what the deal is with the power? I'm not getting any power from it.
I will solve your power problem.
Is that it? That's not it. And ShmooCon provided a bunch of servers, and then also we had graciously loaned to us a bunch of Cisco switches and a Cisco firewall.
Is it official? The first time I've ever seen an electrical loop.
All right, so there we go.
You got everything.
The teams. So we basically broke the group up into 5 teams.
Power, right?
Do I have power?
Power.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? So, yeah. So we broke the group up into 5 teams. We had a team that was focused on all the switching and routing. We had a team that was focused on the wireless and wireless IDS. We had a team that was focused on network monitoring, and then a team that was focused on the DNS and DHCP servers, which was kind of like a core services group. And so the leads of those teams, I ran, well, the leads going into it were myself for the DNS and DHCP team, Terry for the routing and switching, Luis for the wireless, and then Mike for the firewalls. And we ended up kind of adapting quite a bit. Eno, who showed up, who is, has excellent Cisco foo, ended up basically taking over the entire switching group and did a great job there. And so we kind of had to adapt things as we went along. And log into our... Oh, look at that. That's awesome.
You plug your laptop in, it reboots.
I don't know what happened. Are we on
You're on both screens, too.
Look at that. We just needed to turn it on and off a couple of times. Come on. Yeah. There we go. Sorry, I should have these memorized, right? Is that the?
Let me show the ones I got.
Yeah, go for it. Well,
Well, no, don't touch it because I don't want it to stop.
This isn't an awkward silence. This is a normal.
yeah, it's a totally normal silence.
Anybody has an old laptop that like to donate to kids?
Do I want to recover that? No. Awkward silence. Bueller. 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 All right, there we go. No, we don't have to start over. See, you guys are having a great time, I can tell. So here are the basic teams. I already explained who the leads of the teams were. And so we had quite a few planning and challenges, and just challenges in general. One is the network design. I mean, you can't really go into this and have wiring diagrams and all this stuff pre-built because the hotel changes. We're in a completely different area of the hotel than we were last year. And once we get on the ground and all the gear arrives, things are guaranteed to change. Since we've been here in the past 3 years, the hotel has changed their internet connectivity. They've changed some of their switching and how all that stuff works. And also every year there's new employees at the hotel and new IT staff who we have to explain what we're doing, how we're going to promise them that we're not going to break their network. A lot of the equipment, we see it for the first time when it hits the ground. So a bunch of boxes show up at Heidi and Bruce's house, and we open them up and we're like, oh, this is cool. What are we going to do with it? I don't know. Integrating with the hotel can also be pretty challenging. One of the main things is that they have wireless that they charge for, and they contract that out to another company. So there's a bunch of people who are using that as a source of revenue, and so the first thing that they think about is, well, we're going to turn on 20 access points providing free wireless, and that's going to potentially impact their revenue, but also it can potentially impact the guests because we have 1,100 people who are not your typical computer users. There's going to be all sorts of crazy stuff going on. I mean, I just earlier today, one of the vendors out in the vendor area was actually hijacking people's wireless connections and redirecting them to a page that says, "Come to our booth and check out our product." Like it's not. This isn't a normal conference. A lot of crazy stuff goes on. We had a situation where hotel IT staff came down and they were positive that our wireless APs were interfering with the customer's EVDO connection. Right, on the fourth floor of the hotel. And, so we basically, luckily someone was standing next to me with an EVDO card, so we took it out, turned it on, standing right underneath an access point and proved, to prove to them that that wasn't the case. And then also we have to get them to trust us and grant us physical access to all the wiring closets and that type of thing. In terms of the network design, this is something like a short little story about, I haven't been to DEF CON in a while, but about 4 or 5 years ago I was at DEF CON, and we were in the area where the CTF takes place. And you look up on the ceiling and there's a Cisco access point hanging from the ceiling. It's like zip tied to the center of the ceiling, and there's a network cable going to it. And so I was talking to someone from, I think it was the NOC team, and I'm like, well, how do you know that thing's working? And they're like, oh, well, we don't. We shut off all administrative access to this thing so that no one can break into it, and it just hangs up there. And basically, if you wanted to troubleshoot what was going on, you have to get on a ladder, plug in a serial cable, and get on the console of the thing. And so that's kind of like one extreme of like taking security, in my opinion, a little bit too far, especially in a conference situation where we don't really have a requirement to secure data. We don't care about your data at the end of the day. What you do on the wireless network, we're not here to secure you, we're here to provide reliable connectivity. So it's a fine line that you walk where we end up sacrificing a lot of security to make sure that the network is manageable and monitorable. And we do some things that you might not do in what would be considered a high security environment, because at the end of the day, the only thing we have to lose is a little bit of pride or skin in the game. If our DNS server gets owned, well, yeah, it's too bad, and it makes us look bad, but really, there's really no risk there. The risk is that, we install it and start over again. And also containment. The way generally we've designed the network is that we try to break it up into as many containers as possible and keep it so that we can, if there's something going on, number one, we can isolate where it's happening. So for instance, every speaker podium in the conference is on its own segregated network. It's on its own isolated layer 2 network. So that mitigates a lot of attacks right off the bat, where if someone is demonstrating an attack on the wired network, in theory, a layer 2 attack, for instance, that should not affect other parts of the network. And so there's just a lot of containment going on and breaking things into as many different segments as possible and still make it manageable. And it also makes troubleshooting things a lot easier. Like for instance, one simple thing that I always like to do is take, well, this is the wireless access network, this is the administrative network. let's make sure that, you know, those IP ranges are so far apart from each other that if you're looking at a packet dump with, you know, 20 people looking over your shoulder trying to figure out why the network doesn't work, it's very clear, you know, well, the first 2 octets of this one are 172.16 and this one is 10 something. You know, you don't have to like, it's very clear that this traffic is coming from this section, this traffic is coming from this section. Lots of little stuff like this. And here's basically the network diagram as it stands today, and it kind of goes over how everything is set up. And you'll notice that there's a lot of VLANs. And, you know, lots of people will talk about VLANs and say VLANs are bad, they don't provide security, and we know that, and we don't really use them as a security method. We just kind of use them as a way to modularize things. And here's a quick screenshot of our firewall management console. This came in extremely handy over the course of setting up the network because, you know, we're trying to figure out, we've got all these different networks, the firewall rules get really complex, and we can just basically sit here and watch the messages go by, and that tells us a lot as to what's going on. And, you know, we basically would sit there and watch it, and we would solve a lot of problems that people were having just by sitting there and tailing the firewall logs. So as a result, I would say that I think it's been a great success. It seems like, you know, everybody had a lot of fun. I think people learned a lot, and the teamwork was amazing. You know, when we got here on Thursday morning, Simple asked me to do sort of an inspirational speech for everybody to get them all rah-rah, and the only thing I said was, you know, like, leave your egos at the door and just, you know, work together, and everybody did that. And so all in all, I think the whole thing was a great success. And that's all I have for the slides. So I don't know if you guys have anything you'd like to, do you want to show? So does anybody have any questions or anybody have any items of discussion they want to bring up? Oh, yeah, definitely.
The only thing I'd say is the knock needs to be bigger next year. We were plunged in there.
Well, that kind of made it fun in a way. I was repulsed yet strangely curious the entire time anyone would walk around.
Yeah, you go for it.
I was going to actually. Oh, is this thing on? Yeah. You hear that? Okay. All right. Okay. I was just going to comment on some of the things I saw. We brought in a NAC device, and actually we're running a fairly new version of our code on the box on the hardware. And actually, through the course of it, we were actually able to find a bug which we were able to report in.
This is actually your box. We got a screenshot of your console.
Yeah, okay, yeah, here's our console there, cool. But we actually, on our system, we actually found a bug. Oh yeah, this is kind of cool, some of the things are showing in there, like I was surprised. We take our box and, like I said, we put it in, like, say, a university environment, something like that. You see tons of spyware, tons of bad things going on. There was very, very little spyware, actually, although we did see some. So there's a few people. I guess there's some marketing people here or something. But
yeah, I mean, basically, you know, you look at these. Oh, show the back real quick. Just tell you. You know, you can see these. This is going back one. This is the people doing scans and stuff, and some of them are using, you know, different stuff. So this is some of the attacks you see there on the network itself, and then these are the people who have spyware, and then there's somebody who went to a website that tried to do an attack upon them. So kind of one of the interesting things is we actually saw you know, pretty even amount of attacks from websites coming back to people. These are, again, people ARP flooding and doing scans and half open and stuff like that too. So it's very interesting to see that, you know, not only was it people attacking out, it's people getting attacked by web servers they go to on the outside there. This is the IDS module there too, and you can see the, you know, number of high alerts was very low, so there wasn't a whole lot of bad stuff on the network.
Go ahead. Where are what? So we actually have a couple of things. Branson set up a snort box that was kind of dual purpose to do packet capture and also do some IDS stuff. And so in that situation, we plugged him into a central span port where we were mirroring all the VLANs to one port. In the case of Veneer's equipment, we actually put them in line because they had the ability to be in line. And you know, even correct me if the box is powered off, does it still pass traffic, or is it no? Okay. Well, anyways, but the box is in line and basically didn't, you know, like, we had it configured so that it would not touch the traffic at all, and so it got, you know, it was just in line at an aggregation point, and that's how we were able to see all the traffic. Now, keep in mind that doesn't necessarily, one thing that I don't believe we did was, we're not necessarily able to see all of the wireless traffic that maybe was not destined for a remote network. So if someone, was on the wireless network and they were potentially, like attacking the default gateway or trying to, like launch an attack against another wireless user, we wouldn't have caught that. In order to do that, we would have had to have had some wireless boxes out there actually doing frame dumps. We did have a wireless IDS vendor, Network Chemistry. I don't believe the guy from Chris is here, but they were monitoring wireless security events, but they were not actually doing packet captures. We had another question back there. Well, quick question. Is that okay? I tried to get to it from here. Do you want to try and get to the weather map? So to answer the question was what kind of bandwidth do we have and what kind of utilization do we have? So the hotel actually here has a DS3, and initially we were supposed to get 6 to 8 megs, and when we started off, just from some initial tests, we were not getting anywhere near that. And so we worked with them and kind of showed them the data that we had, and they opened up a ticket with their team, and then they basically allocated us a guaranteed 6 meg profile on their network. I don't really know a lot about their architecture, so I can't say what that profile is or how they actually did that. And immediately after that, we were actually getting speeds of up to 20 megs, and from the wireless, I've done various tests from the wireless, and I've been able to get, anywhere from like 3 to 6 megs. Terry was able to get, did you say you were able to get?
I was able to get like 9 on the wireless.
9 on the wireless?
Up to 20 on the wired.
Yeah, and up to 20 on the wired network. So, and the funny thing is that actually utilization has been extremely low. I mean, John, can you say what we're peaking at like 2 to 2.5 megs. So we're not anywhere near utilization, and all the testing that we've done for throughput, we basically, tested through all the various avenues of the network to ensure that, for instance, we're not peaking at 2.5 because the firewall is at a high load and can't pass any more bits. We've confirmed that all the gear that's there is capable of passing more traffic. Yes. Well, that's kind of, we can't really do that. I mean, we try to deploy the wireless network in such a way that we're not going to seep out too far. One trick that Luis did, I don't know, maybe you want to talk about that real quick for the APs out there? All right. So we did talk to the hotel because they were a little bit concerned because they were getting people up on some of the room floors that were seeing our SSID, and primarily out in the atrium area there's glass, the roof is all glass, and so the signal penetrates through that really well. So one of the things that we did on the access points that were out in the atrium is that we left them on the ShmooCon SSID, but we turned them to non-broadcast, so that if you were in here and you had set up your laptop to connect to ShmooCon and you go out there, your laptop will still find it, but if you're not actually looking for that SSID, you won't be able to connect to it. So we can't guarantee it, and basically we kind of have like a gentleman's agreement with them where we'll do our best, the best that we can to contain it as much as possible. Exactly. We did not, and basically we've talked to them about that in previous years, and we're trying to basically be as low impact as possible to them, and it does, having that many access points does provide some interference, but it's really just kind of like more of like a courtesy, to not make them have to do any more work or bend over any more backwards than they have already. Because they really do, I mean, I don't know, I've actually worked in the hospitality industry a lot doing like, consulting and network deployments for hotels. And, what they do here is very unusual. We're the only conference at the hotel that's allowed to bring their own wireless network. They have tons of conferences, and a lot of conferences want to bring their own gear, and we're the only ones that can because of the relationship, and the trust that we've built with them over the past 3 years.
I was part of the network team, and as we had some pressure on us, all people depended on us. They came to us every 5 minutes and asked, "What about the switches? Are they running?"
Are the switches ready yet? Are the switches ready yet?
We worked with a lot of templates. Templates not for a whole config, but templates for specific tasks. Disable 10, 12 services in one command chain, SNMP4 logging, stuff like this. If anybody is interested in these templates, just address me directly. I'm happy to share them. And I started for the team, as there was some learning. I started to pull off the configs and to comment them. This section does this and it's configured due to these reasons. If you want to get it configs, ask me.
Yeah, and on that note, one other thing, me and Eno were talking last night at 2 or 3 in the morning or something like that about the whole event and how well it went. And one of the things that he mentioned that I would definitely agree with, and I think is a really good point, as the switch team had to work with the network monitoring team to get things like SNMP configured so we can monitor port utilization, bandwidth utilization, all that stuff. And so we were talking about the fact that we wanted to use SNMP v3. And I don't know, working out in corporate America or in various networks, find number one, if your gear supports it, great. But in general, the fact that we managed to pull it off and actually get our monitoring system, which I believe was it Cacti that was talking to all the switches using SNMP v3, and we were both kind of like, yeah, this is like something where we've worked in a ton of environments, and trying to get something like that done in most environments is not impossible, but it's really hard to do, and it was something that that just happened. Like, it was amazing how quickly it all kind of fell together. And so I think that was just kind of a testament to the people involved and everybody's can-do attitude. Yes. Yeah, I mean, one actually, in addition to just there was a lot of things involved. So for instance, for DNS, DHCP, we brought servers that were preloaded with operating systems, but they weren't locked down. They weren't, like DHCP wasn't even installed. So people working on that had to install the services. They had to, configure them. They had to lock them down. Oh, did you just okay? And yeah, so we pretty much kind of showed up with everything almost bare. The switches, like the first thing that the switch team had to do when they got here, was they had to upload new versions of iOS, and get the switches all up to date. So, is that a picture of the network map there? Scroll down. So, to answer your question, yeah, I think that if someone didn't get hands-on work, it was because, they either weren't trying or they just didn't, want to deal with it. This is a network weather map that the monitoring team has been working on. And they actually just we've been collecting data for a while, but we just actually got this portion of it working. And so this will show you basically the core switches, all the wireless access points. Actually, I don't know if you guys want to talk about it at all, or. Yeah, and so actually that's a good point. I mean, in some cases, like the network monitoring, these guys are still working on it. Like there was a lot of work to be done to actually pull all this stuff off. And so if you pop into the lab or into the NOC over the course of the day, we'll have this stuff up on the projector, and you can kind of maybe even talk to them or get a little bit more detail, and they can show you. So basically this is kind of an interesting, talking about dealing with stuff at HackerCons, and we were talking about open source tools that we were using for monitoring. One of them is Cacti. How many people are familiar with Cacti in the room? Cacti is basically, it's like, think of like RD and MRTG with a PHP database backend. So needless to say, it's like totally ownable. This is not something that you would want to expose to 1,100 people at this conference. So we had to kind of engineer a way to get the data. But we wanted the monitoring system. It's very robust and it's very useful and it's a great tool. But we don't want to expose the interface to it, even if it's just a read-only interface. we don't want to take the risk of exposing our network monitoring system to the entire conference. So how do we do that? Well, we kind of used an interesting methodology for doing this. We took we put the the monitoring server is locked down on an isolated network, and then we took a small embedded device based off of a Socrus board. It's a single board computer, and it runs off of compact flash. And so it boots up, and it mounts the entire root file system read-only. So even if you are to bust into a service on the box, you can't actually write anything to the root file system. And then there's a RAM disk, and so the monitoring box has a one-way push to the RAM disk, and so this file is getting updated constantly by the monitoring server on a RAM disk. And so if the box gets owned, we reboot it, turn it back on, and then it comes back up, it creates the RAM disk, and we start pushing data to it again. And so it's kind of like a very low-risk way to publish this data out to the public network. Well, yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is that the general design has stayed the same. I mean, I think, Mike did for the first ShmooCon, Mike did like the original network diagram, and we've, over the years, expanded on it. And the design has pretty much remained the same, but every year the gear has changed. Like, we've brought in new vendors. Like last year, I think Resilience who's a checkpoint vendor, brought the firewalls that we used. Who else was there last year? Was it, do you remember? Network Chemistry was there last year. Oh, and for the wireless stuff, last year we used Cisco's Airspace product, which feature-wise is similar to Aruba, but still, a completely different system. So we would still have to, go through and figure out which, in the MIB, which OIDs we need to get to collect data. So it's not really, we try and keep a lot of the data. I know from previous years, John has kept the data from the monitoring system, but we don't really have, because of the way we've been doing it, we don't really have a turnkey setup. And in some ways, yeah, it's part of the fun. Yeah, we don't want to have a turnkey setup. It kind of takes away from the whole spirit of the thing.
And we like to use new gear. Every year we like to use new gear. So like last year we used a 38, 45 and some content modules and stuff. And this year we used completely different gear from different vendors to make it fun.
Yes. We are not, are we? No, I don't actually. I'm not familiar with braces. What kind of tool is it?
That's the Bluetooth sniffing that they did last year to track where everybody was moving.
Okay, yeah, no, we don't actually have anything Bluetooth deployed at all. Yeah, I don't even own a Bluetooth device. Well, personal OS of choice was what we actually had mostly Ubuntu boxes, and basically we had, I think, one Debian box, and the rest were all Ubuntu out of the 4 or 5 servers that we had. Is that right? Oh, that's right. And Branson, yeah, and we also had a FreeBSD box as well. Woo! Yeah, FreeBSD is my personal favorite, and the boxes that we had, we didn't want to ship the boxes here clean and have people actually doing the OS installs. That part of it just kind of seemed like a waste of time. So we kind of figured that, well, no, I mean for the other, yeah, you guys installed it from scratch because the box we gave you had GSX server on it or something. But for the rest of them, we just we installed Ubuntu on them and dropped them here with Ubuntu. We kind of figured that was it's a happy medium for the Debian folks, and we had a lot of people who didn't have a lot of Unix experience going into this. So we did have a lot of people with Debian experience, so we figured they'd be able to train them and help them with that. Well, so here the network is actually so the hotel actually subs it out to somebody else. So there's another company that they sub to that does all that stuff. And there's not, we're not gonna, as much as we want to work with them, we're not gonna consult them for free and do assessments on their network. I mean, that's their responsibility. And if anything, yeah. And if anything, then that, I mean, if we were to work with them to help them fine-tune their network, then it almost puts some onus on us if something does happen. You know, like this way, it's just like you're on your own. You know, we'll do whatever we can with our stuff to make sure that nothing, you know, that we're not doing anything bad. But you know, we can't take responsibility for all the conference attendees, and we can't really, you know, prevent them from doing malicious stuff. Nothing especially. I've actually, I mean.
He sounds awfully hopeful.
Did you get into the next top router?
I don't even bring my laptop today.
Thank you. I'm actually a big supporter of not having any internet access next year. I'm sorry. What was the question again before that?
Problems.
I have seen. I don't think that they've broken anything on the hotel network. At least I have not heard anything. You know, I personally gotten owned a couple of times. You know, I was out in the lot. I was out here working on my PowerPoint presentation or my Open Office presentation. I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like, oh, what time is my talk? And I go to the ShmooCon.org website, and of course it's like, wouldn't you rather see Tub Girl? You know. And then I'm out here in the front lobby, and again, I'm not actually like trying to like read my email or do anything. I'm just like trying to look up the schedule because I didn't have a program on me, you know. And I get redirected to a page from some unmeant. I'm not going to even say their name because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to give them any free advertising. But a vendor out in the vendor area who's, you know, injecting or hijacking people, and I got sent to a page that says, please come to our booth in the vendor area. So that's really the only things that I've been made aware of. I don't know if you guys experience anything else. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and actually, there's been, you know, there's just been a lot of, in general, wireless tomfoolery, which is pretty much par for the course at most of these conferences.
Yeah. The bind servers got hit. How many times did you say that was yesterday?
Yeah, the bind server, someone tried some type of denial of service attack 78 times.
Yeah, and that was like they'd been up for 2 hours.
Yeah. There's a lot of scanning, you know,
Yeah.
ARP spoofing.
I'm less worried about your actual network more so than just the politics of the hotel side. Or you just shrug your shoulders and say, watch your ass.
Well, a lot of their stuff also is 10net network on that stuff. So a lot of their stuff is 10net. So we basically filter out before we go out any stuff on there. So it's got to be real IP. So you know they'd have to basically get the next hop routers out. So there's not a lot of this stuff you could actually. Oh, so as far as them, you know, owning that site, that's something we're not concerned about.
I wouldn't actually mind. I mean, if anyone that actually participated in the audience has any feedback or would like to say anything, I wouldn't mind to hear from you guys. Come on. So actually, can I put up the network diagram here? So one thing that I kind of wanted to, you know, talk about real quick was, so this is actually not the original network diagram. We actually had someone, Brian, one of the guys on our team, actually revamp this and updated it because it changed quite a bit. But you know, picture showing up Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. You know, people are tired or hungover or what have you, and there's about 25 people that, you know, most of them I've never met before, and the same goes for everybody. And so, you know, I showed up with a diagram not very different than this and handed it out to everybody and gave everybody, you know, very abstract tasks and abstract information. I mean, this isn't like, you know, this isn't an as-built or anything like that. It's a very, you know, it's just an overview of the design, and everybody was able to take that and run with it. And, you know, there was really, I think for the most part, you know, everybody just kind of like, you know, was clicked, and that was amazing. I mean, I've worked at a lot of companies where if I had walked into, you know, any particular department or group, even, you know, network engineers, and flipped this down, you know, on a table of 10 people and said, this is what we're going to do, you know, we have 24 hours to do it, they'd just kind of like sit there, you know, with cross eyes like, huh, that's nice. Right. Yep. 10 minutes or so. Right. I'm not going to give you a definitive answer on this. I'd say it's highly likely, but we haven't really done, you know, like a post-mortem on it and decided, you know, I mean, I would say it's very likely, and a lot of people have expressed interest in doing it again next year. And, you know, actually, some things that I'd be interested in hearing about, just because of the fact that we did it this year, this means that there's going to be a lot more people interested in doing it next year. And so one of the questions that I kind of have is, how do you take something like this and make it scale? You know, and you know, so if anybody has any feedback on that, whether or not you participated, you know, I'd definitely like to hear about that, because if we could go from, you know, having 20 to 30 people to having 50 people, that would be great. But, you know, we don't want to do it sacrificing the quality of the experience. You know, if we're going to have 50 people, I want to make sure that, you know, we have 50 people, you know, 50 people have something to do and get the same experience that everybody else got here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, if this was Thursday morning, what would you do different?
Bring more gear.
Yeah.
Bring more hard gear to implement.
Yeah.
More weird shit.
Like, you know, maybe some, you know, application inspection engines, some proxies, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
you know. We only had 6 IDS vendors, so that, you know, we thought maybe some more IDS.
I tell you something that we probably should do for next year, that we had to, we kind of had to improvise doing some of this stuff. I mean, once we got the IDS stuff up, and all the IDS IPS stuff up, I had to go out and actually start using exploits immediately, just to test to make sure, okay, is everything working the way it's supposed to, and everything. And so just coming up with like a pen test group that says, okay, this section is up, hammer on it, tell us what you get, and getting some people that aren't used to doing pen tests and stuff, and then couple with some people that do them, would be a lot of fun, I think. So that way, if you got the people that are like, they're used to being like, you know, keyboard jockeys, and they're really kind of afraid of cables and hardware, then they've got some place that they can kind of focus.
We had testing the IDSs was, we were having trouble just testing, picking up IPv6.
Yeah.
It would be nice if I could hand say, you guys go make IPv6 traffic.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And, you know, it's great this year because we got to compare a lot of the IDS stuff. I think it'd be fun to bring and compare multiple stuff, like if we did multiple NACs next year, like Cisco Clean Access and Veneer on that side, and kind of, because you really get a hands-on chance when you work at the labs to be able to play with all this gear. And it's nice to play with your lab and stuff, but if you don't have any real users or real traffic on it, you get a very warped perspective as to what the product actually does and how it's useful, and would you want to use it or run it. So that's the benefit. You can just take stuff, throw it into a real network that you'd never get to usually do, and play with it, and you have people complain when it doesn't work.
I wouldn't go because I didn't bring a laptop with me because I'm just that kind of paranoid guy. But is there V6 here?
We are not currently, no, we're not currently routing V6. I mean, you would, obviously, if...
Actually, yeah, we probably should do that, because that sounds really hard.
Yeah.
That sounds hard.
Add it to the list.
You're asking how to make it scale, and that's the guy brings up a point. Is actually have special projects, like you know, maybe like people who really want to get SIP working, or people who want to get IPv6 working, or the exploit team or something.
But
So-
keep your new groups to the numbers that you had, because I think that 30-ish number worked.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There was plenty of work to do, but but having 120 people and saying that we're going to do IPv6 and we're going to compare IDSs, and now you're going to get into the corporate mentality and going.
Yeah, you're also going to have to phase it too, because you'll have to have core before you can start doing some of the projects. And that would be maybe have a phased approach, have a, you know, core, one day core come in, second day projects, next day con.
I wouldn't, and I would also say give the choice to the OS back a little bit. And I mean, there's another thing to do, and there are OS junkies around, so maybe have a staging area to just stamp out the OS.
Yeah, a bunch of
I mean, like actually
CDs
one
saying, okay, here.
Yeah, I mean, we could even
we
like
already
set
got
up like a
burned
Pixie boot server, you know, that could boot like you know, OpenBSD, FreeBSD, Red, Fedora, all that stuff. I mean,
VMware. All right, now it's too big.
See, here we are already planning next year. This is great.
The other thing too is you just mentioned that you're still working on different aspects of it, so something else to consider is to chunk it by time as opposed to function. So, you know, first 12 hours, this team is these next 12 hours is team with these 10 people.
Yeah, sure.
That would kind of expand it with that, and then maybe you could, sleep.
Actually, the team seemed to morph quite a bit.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
You get someone that you find out they got a little bit of a skill set in something. One team would steal them for a while, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, one of the things I thought. One thing I think was sort of interesting is making the network more than just about getting internet access, right? So maybe next, just hypothetically, just discussion with you guys, see if you'd be interested. But if we were to allow you guys to give us VMware images and we'd boot up on a server and you guys could run certain stuff, or you could maybe drop a server off, or what other sorts of value in the network itself could we make it more valuable rather than just, oh great, I get to check my freaking email again in Google. What do you guys think would be fun stuff to have as value on the network itself rather than just routing out?
High definition, yeah. You had your hand up for a bit.
You cannot bring a laptop next year either.
We did both. Sometimes I remember how to do it in the command line. Sometimes I remember how to do it in the GUI. We basically do both.
Wait, hold on.
When I remembered how to do it.
When for after 3 hours of troubleshooting, you remembered that the internal interface had to have the enabled checkbox. He did that through the GUI.
That's when the GUI really made it blatantly obvious that it was off when I did that. So we kind of do both. But people who were learning, because we had a lot of people who had actually never touched an ASA before, and they were doing some of the configurations on there also. So people who were learning, we basically did it with the GUI. But we basically started out, doing the CLIs for the setup, the initial stuff, so you can get to the management interface, and then went to the GUI. But we had a lot of people who, had never worked on, any sort of firewall at this level, working on the firewall directly. So it was great to have them. And plus, if there's a lot of rules to implement, I don't have to do it then.
I believe we had HTTP off, but we were using the Java GUI. I don't know if that uses the. Oh, it does it. Okay.
We had a separate management VLAN that you actually had to be there in order to get it on. Also.
Actually, on the ASA, you actually had to be plugged into the.
Yeah, you had to be plugged on that. Yeah, we're on that port there also.
Yeah, we had like one laptop with a cable dedicated just to doing that.
And literally the first step when you get the network infrastructure gear here is you just go and you take whatever OS is running on there and you erase it and you put a new one on, because between this year and last year there's always the code stuff. So everything that you're running on here today is basically running code that's extremely fresh, so that the vulnerabilities are patched. So I think the subversion numbers on the ASA code is like .48. So it's like there's a lot of revisions in there.
I'd like to add two things here. Speaking for the network team, we didn't use HTTP or HTTPS-based configuration at all. In fact, we disabled both services and even deleted the certificates, which are added automatically with newer versions. This is one thing. The other thing is talking about VMware. I'd recommend not using it. Some shameless self-plug here. I'm going to give some presentations on virtualization security in the second part of this year, and I can already say don't use VMware in security sensitive environments.
One other, I guess, one other thing I wanted to, I guess we didn't really touch on, and I don't actually see it here on the, do I see it on the diagram? One thing that we did that was kind of cool is that the Aruba wireless gear was capable of basically providing multiple SSIDs. So on one axis, all that, you could basically go to the controller and you could push an SSID out to all the devices. So we had Applied Security, who was running a hacking contest out in the vendor area. They wanted to basically have their own network set up, and they talked to us about bringing APs and setting up wireless. And so what we ended up kind of doing, we knew it was coming, but it was definitely like a last minute engineering type thing. We basically got them their own virtual network, put them on there, got their servers in the NOC, and then pushed out an SSID for the contest. So the same gear that we're using to provide internet access for the entire conference is also being used for the people in the hacking contest to get access to their systems as well.
All sorts of things you guys could do, like localized torrents, torrent server for
these types of presentations, things like that, where it doesn't require outside bandwidth or anything like that. That'd be really interesting. I could see there being, doing asterisk boxes, localized telephones from point to point. I mean, not that it's even that much of a feature for the con, but a learning experience for these same people who are already interested.
I just want to point out that if anyone was going to try to do something bad on the network, it's kind of funny. There's probably anywhere from at least 3, maybe 5 different boxes that are basically sniffing everything and dumping it out to a file. I mean, there's copies of everything everywhere, and I don't know if we would make that available to everyone, because in case you've got something sensitive that accidentally went across. But I think that maybe at some point we could use some of that, like maybe next year, to use
it to
replay and actually do some actual testing with that. That might be kind of interesting. Say, okay, here's a load we can throw on something. Is it going to handle it?
Traffic separated, were there any real intentions with analyzing afterwards?
It's just easier to look at the traffic. So I mean, yeah, you can filter it out, but yeah, it's nice just to have it in 2 separate places.
I mean, speaking, putting my vendor hat on, one of the things that we plan on doing is using what we've captured for replaying to do stress testing and stuff like that. Where we got yet another example of some real world traffic. And I mean, the thing is most of the people here are fairly educated and realize that when you get a bunch of somewhat questionable characters building a knock, that someone's going to be sniffing something.
Like Simple Nomad.
Yeah, well, but nonetheless, I mean, you're going to be capturing a lot of data and everything, so it's always nice whenever you're testing network gear if you've got something you can replay that's real and everything. So I think for us, it's going to be a really nice resource to have what we've captured, and I'm hoping we can reuse it multiple times.
Question?
If you were given the option to run globally routable addresses, would you have done that, or were you happy to get the non-routable so people wouldn't be setting up servers and stuff?
Well, I mean, the thing is, we're not. I would say that we'd probably, we probably would not, open up the firewall to allow inbound traffic and inbound connections to users so that they could run, servers and those types of things on their machines that are available on the internet. Just because, I mean, it seems to me like it's just asking for more trouble. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's right now as it is. If someone wanted to put a public, there are ways obviously that you could get, a box on ShmooCon, on the ShmooCon network, tunneled out to the internet somehow and make it publicly accessible. But you have to want to do that and go through some effort to do it. And so I just wouldn't want to allow two-way traffic in general. I think that would just add more more hassle to things, more stuff. It's like when you're trying to part of the reason for having this network so segmented was that when you're trying to troubleshoot stuff, it's really nice to be able to do things like, oh, okay, well, we've got a problem with this, someone on this particular network is having this problem, or something is going on here, and at that point you can start whether it's virtually or physically, you can start unplugging stuff. And when you got 20 people and you're running around like chickens with your heads cut off, sometimes that is the simplest way to start troubleshooting, is to just go through and start unplugging stuff and see if it changes, because it's just simple.
And we did.
Yeah,
we did that.
All right, is that it? Are we? Okay, it's 6 o'clock. One thing I would encourage is if you want to come by and check out the weather map and the knock, and you can also ask us more questions or check out the gear if someone's around. Maybe take a look at the GUIs and talk to people. And other than that, thanks to everybody up here, thanks to everybody that participated, and thanks to you guys for your good questions and attending the talk. But any further
encourage them to actually.
Wow, look at all these.
All sorts of shmoo balls, man.
That way, that guy who wanted who was doing the stuff with a vendor, he can have a form to do that.